Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 117 of my modded Factorio playthrough. Before we get working on our next design, should probably clear out the inventory a little bit. At this point, we've probably got a little too many fish, so I'll have to put those somewhere. Put an extra chest right here just for the fish, because they kind of don't have any use anymore. But I also don't want to get rid of them, because you never know. Saves a tiny little bit of time having to mine more fish. Okay, that seems about as clean as we're gonna get it. Oh, there's still some wood in here. We can fill that up real quick. Then we'll be good. So now that we've got the overall design theory of our processing bus here, we need to start working on the individual machines. The first step after the raw ores come in is getting crushed, because we can't do anything with raw ores. Probably going to need a bunch of space to design this, so we've got that there. I think I'll just leave it. It's a bit of a map. Instead, we can clear out some more trees here. Okay, so let's look at the basic recipe here. Let's grab all the machines we'll need. So you just crushers. We've only got one. We're going to need many more than that. Let's start with sapphire. Looks like 2 ores per second go in, and then 2 crushed ores per second come out, and also a crushed stone. But this machine runs at a speed of 2 because it's upgraded, so that's 4 ores per second. Our factory's basically working on a belt-by-belt basis here. And what I mean by that is, previously when we started, we kind of picked obligatory numbers like 6 items per second or something like that, which is actually roughly half of a yellow belt. But once your factory starts getting big, you need to think in number of belts that you want to handle instead of the exact number of items. Because it's easy to get confused and lost when you're writing down all these obligatory numbers, but it's easy to remember how many of belts. And typically when you're saying how many belts, it's how many belts of your best belt. Because why would you use more of an inferior belt? If you need more than one anyway. So in our factory, we're basically handling about 1 red belt a second of ore. And on our previous discussion of belt design, I talked about having a 6 belt wide bus here, where we were only going to use 3 belts for any given item, because that would allow us to expand it to 6 belts, which would double our output. But also we can upgrade these to blue belts, which is a 50% increase, which will triple our output. So we can start with 3, then upgrade to 6, and then if we turn these into blue, we would get the equivalent of 9. Maybe I'll just leave those there for now. So that's kind of the thought process here. So since we're starting out, we're going to start out with 3 red belts of items. So that's kind of how we need to think about this, that we need to have the ability to process 3 red belts now, but have the space to expand to 6 red belts later. That's important. Just all aspects of the factory need to have gaps for when we want to expand for more products, if we need to, which is almost certainly we can. Now we could upgrade any given factory with higher quality belts and higher quality machines, but after that's done, if it's still not enough, we have to rebuild the whole factory. And by leaving gaps in our design, it looks weird, but there's a method to it. It leaves a specific and calculated amount of space. So with that said, we need to figure out how we're going to build these. And since we're working on a 1 red belt basis, how many of these ore crushers do we need for 1 red belt? Well, we calculated each one of these can handle 4 items per second, and a red belt is 26.66. So divided by 4 is 6.66, or let's just say 7. So we need 7 ore crushers. Let's move this out of the way. We need another one. We need 7 ore crushers to handle 1 red belt. So something like this. If they're spaced like that. Autosave. Just because of the reach of the pole. We need to have room for the poles in there. And in theory, we could probably actually squish the poles in like right here. So for example, putting these like this, since we're running at a speed of 4 items per second, we really only need 2 inserters here. So in theory, we could, you know, throw stuff like that and not have any spaces between these at all if we really wanted to maximize it. But that also takes up space in the future if we upgrade these machines to run faster, where we need more inserters and we don't have enough. And honestly, the space for these poles, essentially 3 squares, is very small. Like, there's some designs we'll get into later, especially with washing with the flotation cell, because of how large they are and how many of them you need, where we are going to squish things as tightly as we possibly can. But in this case, there's an advantage to spacing things out, where we have more flexibility if they're spaced out like this. So we can kind of just place everything. So we're going to have a red belt coming in. And it's going to take 2 blue inserters. Something like that. And then we're going to have our output go down here. And we're going to need to space these out properly, because we need to do near side and far side, just to maximize this belt right here. So let's make these the far sides. And then these the near sides. And final consideration is that this being an earlier version of Factorio, belt compression is a difficult thing. So we need to put underground belts in here. And the way that I kind of calculate it is it's approximately 2 blue inserters per red belt, or 1 blue inserter for a yellow belt. Now the reason why we have 4 here is because they're inserting on only one side. So since this is far side and this is far side, that's 2. And this is near side and this is near side, and that's 2. So that's why I know we need this much. I think there's a slight tiny bit advantage to putting a 3rd set on here, but I think it's going overkill. It's like less than 1% improvement, if at all, for that extra layer of underground belts, so don't need that. But another thing that we need is to get rid of this crushed stone. And we have exactly half the amount of crushed stone output than the crushed ores, so we know we need a yellow belt. But we actually have a room for improvement here, because if we're going to be building multiple sets of these, why build multiple sets of yellow belts when we can just combine the output of 2 lines of crushers onto 1 red belt for stone? Something like this, and then use long inserters. So that's what we'll do. Oh yes, but these need to be filter inserters. Otherwise they're going to just put everything. When you have multiple outputs, you need to have a filter inserter. So, gotta fix that. So we'll make these the regulars again. Then these guys are the nears. Then we have to set these for stone. Crushed stone. And then careful not to drag across all of these, because it'll copy the near settings. Kind of want to get rid of the flashing, and also just make sure there's no missing poles or anything. So let's just put some temporary light poles right there. There we go, and now we can more easily see. Okay, now we need the long-handed. Space these every 2. And the long-handed nears. There we go. So now we need to copy basically this down here, but there are some considerations to make. Specifically, the style of belts. So we're going to have 3 lines of belts coming down, or 6, but right now we're going to have 3. And we kind of want to have a easy in, easy out kind of replacement like this. So if we copy this exact design again, where we have the input belts coming in here, it's going to fit nicely. Right here, we can have an underground there, and then they just go in. However, if we go for a mirrored approach, where we have all of the outputs right here, this output belt's going to come in, and then they're going to 2 belts are going to be occupying the same space, because this belt has to come down in here and then deliver the raw products, and then they come in like this. So you see where we actually have to do special considerations for this. So it's not exactly symmetrical, but it's to allow it to fit easily within the belt system. So we can just kind of copy these inserter settings down. So they're all alternating, inserting near and far on the center belt there. And because we're picking up from this belt down here, we don't need filter inserters, just the standard will do. Oops. I didn't think it would copy things like that. Awesome, the power poles reach. We need these similar underground belts for these last few bits here. So since we're inserting from 2 different sides here, rather than this inserting from one side, it means we only need the 1 set of underground belts here, because we're getting 1, 2, so that's 1, then 1, 2, which is 2. And then we need our second output down here. And that this has to be... Oops. I noticed I just did all these as crushed stone instead of crushed sapphirite. There we go. Don't worry, we'll be testing this design. Whenever you have anything kind of this complicated, you always want to test the design first to make sure that it works. Okay, let's do our output. We have filters. Regulars, and then the nears. Let's see, we're looking pretty close here. We do need some lights. That seems good enough. Oh, just the underground belts right here, I think. Other than that, I think it looks pretty good. So this isn't all we need, this is only 2 belts worth, but this is the official repeating pattern. See, I don't know, I kind of want to keep both of those things. Let's make another blueprint for now. See, now we have an official repeating pattern that we can place down here. Or up there. To get as many belts worth as we need. So let's test this. Testing this can be a little difficult because of not having the red unloaders. Do I have any extras? A couple. I don't think that's anywhere near enough. Because we want to test this at full speed, so we need another 4. Something like that should be pretty good. Okay, I'm going to save the game here just so we could revert, so we don't have to deal with all these processed resources if we don't need them. Okay, let's go grab some ore to crush. How much ore? We probably need quite a bit. Well, since we're just going to revert the save anyway, I'll just pick up as much as I can. Okay, I'll get rid of these real quick. Maybe I should have gotten rid of these instead. So I can just drag up here. So when we place these, everything will start up. So we're looking for mostly green lights here. Oh, I didn't put these back here. There we go. So we're looking for like 6.6 usage, so the last machines should occasionally not run. And we're looking for no delays here. So when you look at the end, it looks a little janky, like it's not keeping up with the belt. But you don't want to look at the end, you want to look at the beginning here. Of course it just stops. Alright, let's try this again here. That's how quickly that processed all of those stacks. See, after restarting it, it looks a little better on the end, but you don't really care about what it looks like on the end. The telling aspect is the beginning. See how it's running at full speed and there's no backup of any items? It means we're using one full red belt. Like the entire red belt's being consumed on both sides. And also, if you look at the input, or the output side here, it's perfectly smooth, there's no gaps, and the entire output of the belt is being consumed. And as expected, we've got a whole single belt worth of crushed stone as well. So since we have slightly too many machines, it's not a perfect match to those belts. You will occasionally see machines yellow or red, and that's okay. Just as long as at the end of the stream it looks okay. And it does. It's just amazing. Just relatively small, compact group of machines, and look how quickly they're chugging through these resources. Okay, let's revert the save here. Okay, we're back, and we know that it works, so there's no reason to make any other changes. We know if we copy this, it'll be fine. That's all the time we have for today, so I'll see you at the next episode.